والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم. رب زدني علما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وإن كنتم على سفر ولم تجدوا كاتبا فرهان مقبوضا فإن عمل بعضكم بعضا فليؤد الذي اؤتمن أمانته وليتق الله ربه ولا تكتموا الشهادة ومن يكتمها فإنه آثم قلبه والله بما تعملون عليم. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So in completion of the ayat al-Dain, which as we mentioned earlier is the longest ayat in the Holy Quran and very critical in terms of muamala, and we mentioned a number of points previously. In completion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَإِن كُنْتُمْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا كَاتِبًا. And if it so happens that you're on a journey and you don't find a katib, as we mentioned that a debt which is to be designated for a particular time in the future should be written down. It is actually an order of the Holy Quran to save ourselves from disputes and rancor and animosity which takes place when we, particularly in the affairs that are connected with wealth. As Nabi said, لِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ فِتْنَةٍ فِتْنَةُ أُمَّةِ الْمَالِ. For every ummah there is a particular major fitna, and the major fitna of this ummah is mal, wealth. So, protecting ourselves from such type of disputes which lead to animosity, lead to a lot of travail. So, the transactions which are to be paid in the future, debts should be written down, and it should be written down by a scribe if the people are not capable of writing themselves. So here it's mentioned if you happen to be on a journey, and as we mentioned, generally the Arabs in those days were not reading or writing, they were illiterate. So probably if they were in the condition of traveling, they probably wouldn't find a scribe. So what do they do in that case? So in that case, وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا كَاتِبًا فَرِهَانٌ مَقْبُولًا. So then you can take something as a security, a rahan, or deposit, or security, or something in the nature of a mortgage, as a surety and security to, realize, the payment of the debt in case the person who is in debt is not capable to pay. So the person who has given that debt can realize that debt from that deposit if necessary. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that only in the condition of traveling that this is the situation. Taking a security for debt, even though the situation here is mentioned in journey, but you don't have to be in journey. If a person feels insecure about the debt, he can take a surety. He can take a deposit as a security to realize that debt. There's no harm in that. So, being in journey is not a condition, but since that would be a situation where probably this would require, that type of situation, particularly the illiterate Arabs at that particular time. So in that case, the security is taken, and it's mentioned in the Quran, فَرِهَانٌ مَقْبُولًا. Something as a security which is maqbood means it is actually acquired. And so what we call al-qabd, which means that you actually have physical possession. So therefore, the fuqaha have understood from this, particularly the Hanafi and Shafi'i fuqaha have understood that a security of this nature only takes place or completes that particular transaction if that security actually comes into the physical possession of the debtor. The Malikiya and the Hanbali ulama, they are not of that opinion. If it's there's an ijab and qabul, there's an agreement, then whether it is physically acquired at that moment or not, still it is complete. So, فَإِنْ أَمِنَ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا فَلْيُؤَدِّ الَّذِي يُؤْتَمِنَ أَمَانَتَهُ وَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهَ رَبَّهُ. And so then thereafter, once you have come into, you've finished your journey, and now you're in a situation of security and safety, and now the debt is to be repaid. So now, obviously, the security deposit is to be returned. And it's mentioned that this is an amana. So that security which is being held by the debtor is an amana, and therefore it's not his property. He can't use it. He can't utilize it. He cannot benefit it. And if it's, for example, it's an animal or something else, that benefit actually, protrudes from it or is acquired from it, that belongs to the actual owner and not to the person who's keeping that security. And that's to be understood. Of course, if the person gives permission to use it, for example, if it's a horse or it's a car or it's something, and he gives it permission, that's another story. Otherwise, not. وَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهَ رَبُّ. And again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us to adopt taqwa and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the reckoning. وَلَا تَكْتُمُوا شَهَادَةً. And do not conceal the shahada, the witnesses and the oaths that we talked about in detail previously. وَمَنْ يَكْتُمْهَا فَإِنَّهُ آثِمٌ قَلْبُهُ. And who conceals a witness, it points to the fact that he has a diseased heart. It's not simply the fact that he has committed a crime, by concealing it, by concealing the witness. It points to the fact that actually there's a disease in the heart from which all, crimes and all sins actually originate. Just as all goodness originates when the heart is sound and in good health spiritually. وَمَنْ يَكْتُمْ فِإِنَّهُ آثِمٌ قَلْبُهُ وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ عَلِيمٌ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is well aware and totally aware of all things. And so that is a final reminder and warning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is totally cognizant of all that we do, inwardly and outwardly. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to follow His injunctions and spread them throughout the